de megebe kulong into de pango batang chen deni ne dung jin pa che tham che serve che de sana de megeba le mu ye job kulong yen penati kulong ye bota le mu tang ye job kulong ye pote ni megeba kulong te tok tar de pango song uri.
As it is said in a tantra called the Pinnacle Tantra, before listening to Dharma teachings or before putting the Dharma teachings into practice, it is very important to have a great motivation. Great motivation is free from any concern for this life. If you practice the Dharma for this life, then that kind of practice is based on the 8 worldly concerns. So therefore, in the practice of Dharma, our intention should not be in order to accomplish something temporary for this life, such as a high position or high status in the worldly society. Or we shouldn't practice the Dharma in order to get rid of temporary sicknesses and so forth. If we approach the Dharma for this kind of temporary purposes, then that kind of intention is very limited and it's not profound. So therefore, first of all, we need to make sure that we have great intention.
Zanto gave kulong dan to me kulong kanya ma ji pa ni me ja le che song pa tar de ti rang te a sa ve ni chuda le de cha pa za ma to zanto ge to ge kulong ma ji pa te ta lo ma ti kulong te gave kulong la ju gave kulong te la yang ji chem den chong song ge kulong pa na ta ji chem bo kulong ta de sam ba ja cha sang chong cho to to ji lo te ji go khu yu sam ba ja cha sang cho to cho to to ji ne ti nga ge chu ka de man do ji tu na ti te ge wa yang ta pa ti te pa chim bi chu ge yang tak pada orang tu dia kita tak ko thong tha par som ka ti chu te gewa yin pa nga ka chu ka re drum na tin te yang tak gewa lan ro ju te ki sam pa sang chung thok ji ne yin ko de song de.
If we sit on the cushion with the neutral mind in order to listen to the teachings, then that is also not appropriate. We have to make sure that we have this great intention of enlightened mind or awakened mind. If we sit down in the teaching with a neutral mind, then it's very much like a dog following a man. A dog following a man has no purpose, no intention of any kind. It's just hanging around with the person. In the same way, if we listen to the teachings with a neutral intention, an intention which is neither virtuous nor non-virtuous, that is also something that we should get rid of. Especially from the point of view of Mahayana practitioners, we need to have this great intention of bodhicitta. With bodhicitta, even if we recite one mantra, such as Om Mani Padme Hum, it becomes a practice of the great vehicle or Mahayana. So therefore, the generation of bodhicitta is virtuous in the beginning, virtuous in the middle, and virtuous at the end.
Các quân hong che par che san yin ji san cho ji chen de ne che dong sa ne yin ne ma za pa de yin de sa song che par gen hun ro we ne de dang bo ni thok ji de ge song ne ni khong ge song ji ta ha thuk ji mo na na de da la da mar si be da ne par si be thar pa dan tham je chi be par do ju pa si ba tham ye je to se be ma nam kha da nyam be chen jin tham ji de ba dan ti dong ha da tar song du de nhiều tự làm việc ta vật dọc sang cho Rinpoche thọ bát sa xong rồi sang cho xem ta Rinpoche rồi ta mấy ta sa giờ dùng sang nguyên sa được ta tí sam ba thì nó có khổ đi xong.
Lord Jugten Sumgon has said in the beginning of the Fivefold Mahamudra that loving kindness and compassion are like a steed, and if one does not win the race of benefiting sentient beings by riding on the steed of loving kindness and compassion, then the spectators of humans and God will not appreciate and not applaud. So therefore, the practice of loving kindness and compassion is very essential, and it's the foundation for all other practices. Therefore, in the Fivefold Mahamudra practice, Lord Jigten Sumgon has put the practice of loving kindness and compassion as the first. Basically, Lord Jigten Sumgon always believed that the teachings which are considered not very profound in other schools, other lineages, are considered very profound in my teachings. That's what Lord Jigten Sumgon always used to say. Keeping in that view of Lord Jigten Sumgon, we usually read in the opening prayers by saying, all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and so forth. So therefore, according to Lord Jigten Sumgon's approach of the Dharma, we need to begin by having a loving and kind and compassionate heart, compassionate mind for all living beings, including our enemies.
Kunzo Sancho Santa, Dundan Sancho Sam, Zotin Amba Nikon, Sinti the Diego Koyuri. Tampong Iran Sokata, Leda Poka Lata, Sinti de Sancho Sam, the Lola Diagona, the Hokundo Sancho Sam goes on good. They are taken to Kundo Lan Martin, but Tambatuna Tomajo, Tambatuna Matopa, young in there about Tomajo, so the Hokundo Sancho Sam de la goes on that day.
A teaching can become teaching of the great vehicle or the lesser vehicle depending on the motivation of the person who is practicing the teaching. In other words, whatever we practice with the great intention of bodhicitta, it becomes a practice of the great vehicle. If there is no bodhicitta, then whatever we practice, and no matter how high and profound it is, it still remains the practice of a lesser vehicle. Now, therefore, as the follower of the great vehicle, we need to train ourselves in the two kinds of bodhicittas, or the awakened minds. The two kinds of bodhicittas are the relative bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta. In order to realize the ultimate bodhicitta, we have to indispensably depend on the relative bodhicitta. It is said in the scripture that without depending on the relative truth, there is no way to realize the ultimate truth. And without realizing the ultimate truth, there is no way to attain complete enlightenment.
Tampo samba zambo ong togo gori samba zambo re yula je khayuri ma to samba ngin phar ke yula te je thokoyo mari ti samba zambo ke yula je du ta rang ke samba ngin phar de samba zambo yorgona ta te yobe thabla ti chemi je ke lo jang go song ri chemi je la ta samba chemi ta hin je chemi gawa chemi ta hyom chemi to ti chemi je de ta de ke lo jang ti rang ke yula ta kun do sang chho sem je go song.
So we need to begin by generating the relative bodhicitta, and the relative bodhicitta can take place only in a mind, in a heart which is pure, which is open and kind. The relative bodhicitta cannot occur in a heart which is negative, which is full of harmful intents. So therefore we have to begin by generating a heart which is open and kind. And the four immeasurables, the immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity, these four practices are the kind of causes from where the relative bodhicitta can arise.
다 재미있게 된 뮤백깔라tin 삼바니 고송 재미있게 된 희우르다 란소 로도 야역깔라 단혐님 고송 고송 단혐님 고송 때 가르핀 토리스나 이랑게 삼바다 hin게 찌엔조데 니랑 차단가 왕소 콜마소 소단에서 콜마소 때 삼바다 hin게 찌조데 고 냠신 hom바로 온거비 책다 호 단혐 때게 혼이 담고 로데지 용고송 단혐 고송 고송.
Usually the order of the four immeasurables is immeasurable love and then compassion and joy and then equanimity. But when you put into practice, it is more appropriate, or it's recommended to begin by training yourself in immeasurable equanimity. Because without having the sense of equanimity, your practice of love and compassion can become kind of biased and partial. So therefore, in order to have love and compassion which is impartial, which is equally extended to all beings, it is more practical to begin with the immeasurable equanimity. So, first of all, we need to know the meaning of equanimity. Equanimity means having no hatred towards enemies and no attachment towards those who are relatives, those who are near. So when our mind is free from attachment and aversion, when our heart is filled with good intentions for all living beings equally, it is equanimity. So we usually have this habitual pattern or this tendency to be specially attached to those who are near and dear to our relatives and parents and brothers and sisters and so forth. And we tend to have this habit to be not that kind and not that compassionate towards those who are not near and dear. And in fact, to enemies, we tend to have very strong hatred and so forth. So this kind of attachment and aversion seems to be quite real. But if we analyze the nature of these feelings, these emotions, they are not as real as they appear to be. If we think in terms of our past life and then present life and the future life, if we think in terms of these three times, then it seems that there is no great reason to be specially attached to those who are near and dear, and specially hateful or for unkind to those who are not near and dear. For instance, a lot of our friends and relatives become friends and relatives in this life because we are indebted to them. We have some kind of karmic debts to pay, and they take birth in this life as our children, as our brothers and sisters, and then we need to repay their kindness. We are indebted to them in many ways. And therefore, a friend or relative is not always a choice. It's there because of our karma. And then the people to whom we have very strong attachment in this life, they could have been our worst enemies in the past. And people who are our worst enemies in this life, they could have been the kindest person in the past. And right now, if we have enemies in this life, they can become the best friend in our future lives. So in this way, nobody is really an enemy, and nobody is really a friend. So therefore, if we think in this way, then we find not so good reason to be specially attached to certain people and hateful to another.
Chuma te kimi te ke pa te tara cha sa ndu je te ke la to so lu lang te ke ne khorang so ke cha sa ari ta ta ya khong to dong je phe la ta kimi ke po pang dang de pa cha sa shin ma la de le ni da wo pang de zong chume chho yo ba ma do hie jo la te ri ho la de ta ta ya khong ke di zai du a kimi te ke po pang du te mun chu khorang ke da wo di de da wo de din ha rang cái bùi bẹt cho chi này đi xem đi, cha san được đi, có món ăn cái phá đi được, phá cái cha, thế này na chơi đi được cái ama đi được món ăn ama, thì ama thì cái ta đi món ăn chua thì rồi ba thì sao thì lên đó, món ăn bang thì cái đau thì bang đấy đi, cha san thì phá cái cha sao thì lên đó, thế chỉ bảo là sự tiền thôi đi, thì ta phá cha sao thì mà là đắng, lấy cái đau bang được xong, chúng mình chơi rồi bang, khỏi phải chơi là cái món đó xong. Regarding
the lives that we change in the past, present, and future, there is a story about a great master called Katayana. This great master once walked in a place, and he came across a woman, and this woman had a baby in her laps. And then she was having some meat. And then around her there was a dog. And the dog was trying to have a morsel of meat. But she was trying to drive away the dog. She was trying to be very unkind to the dog. And at this situation, when Katayana looked through his clairvoyant power, he came to know that the baby in her laps was her worst enemy in the past. And the meat she was eating was of an animal who was the rebirth of her own father. And then the dog, which was around, was the rebirth of her own mother. So in fact, what she was doing is that she was taking care of her worst enemy in the past. She was having the meat of her father, and she was trying to beat up the dog, which was his own mother in the past. At this point, Katayana said that you are eating the meat of the father and beating up the mother and taking care of your worst enemy. When I look at this samsaric life, it appears to me as something very ridiculous.
Samti machaba go no sandada tamchi ata rang tendara le len chap long khor de o siri song te ti tendala de dong ha mu do par song na ti te rang na song ne ke thebe de ti yang ni chem o sin de te ta hu che ke la ne pa cha de ti len cha de rang na khor de te len chang khor le ke te ta ri song de te ke ti ta rang ke ta tendara ni ni de la tendara cha na tendara se de na te ta cha na ta to de ma ta tu so ma ta na that chaksa la to chaksa when the court chayon do the bat mi ba ta to ha ko is on that.
So therefore, if we have attachment to friends and relatives and so forth, it is very helpful to know that they have not always been our friends, they have not always been our enemies. They are our friends and relatives in this life not by our choice. It's because we have to pay karmic debts to them, and then that's how we are kind of related to them karmically. So therefore, when people harm us, it is also very helpful to think that this person is being harmful to me because I've been harmful to this person in the past, and it's a result of my karma. In this way, if we think wider in terms of former lives, in terms of future lives, and so forth, then it becomes easier to get rid of attachment and aversion. So an enemy is not enemy forever. An enemy is not always harmful. Sometimes even if we consider people as enemy and try to harm, they do not really harm in return. In fact, sometimes some people become very famous and very well respected by defeating enemies. So an enemy is not always the source of defeat. An enemy is not always harmful. An enemy can also become a cause of victory. For instance, in some conflicts, people kill enemies, and that they become very famous and very well admired by a lot of people. So that shows that the enemy is not kind of 100% negative. It can also be a cause of admiration. And also, enemies are very helpful in the practice of Dharma. If there is nobody to harm us, if there is nobody who troubles us, then we have no incentives to generate the sense of renunciation, the willingness to attain, freedom from cyclic existence. Because there are enemies, because there are troubles, they kind of encourage us to pursue the path of Dharma. So therefore, enemies are very helpful in the practice of Dharma. So, if we do not consider anybody as enemy forever, then enemies can be changed into very good friends. For instance, when we have problems with people, if we do not consider those people as real enemies, if we talk to them properly and if we try to be patient with them, then gradually those enemies can become the best friends. So therefore, it is always good not to regard others as enemies forever. So it's also possible that our best friends, the people for whom we have special affection, they can become the worst enemy. They can deprive us of all our wealth, and they can even sometimes become the friends of our enemies and then attack back. So therefore, friends are also not friends forever. So therefore, friends and relatives are not always helpful. If we look at our relationship with friends and relatives and so forth, as a Dharma practitioner, then the relatives and friends seems to be an obstacle in the path of Dharma, because for friends and relatives and children and so forth, we have to spend a lot of time making money and earning the living and so forth, and also they can create obstacles and hindrances in the practice of Dharma by keeping us busy with different obligations. So therefore, a friend is not permanently a friend. An enemy is not an enemy, permanently. Those who are friends in this life can become enemies in the future. Those who are enemies in this life, they can become friends in the future life. So therefore, they are changeable and they are impermanent. So therefore, it is very important not to have some kind of, grasping towards friends and enemies. If we grasp on friendship or animosity as something real, then these kind of thoughts become the source of attachment and aversion. And when there are attachment and aversion, that is the source of all problems, all sufferings. Since attachment and aversion are the causes which make us take birth in the lower realms of samsara, we need to get rid of these two emotions and consider all living beings as our own father, as our own mother, or as our own children. That's how the Buddhas of the past practice, by extending equal love and compassion to all living beings without any discrimination.
This simple angan test will la deva mi pa zon ro ko ri tin te da sam no tong ne ti ta ho che dang me je le ta da lo yang ne dang da gong go le di so da ho ma ga sa le gon.
So if we want to develop a state of mind which is free from attachment and aversion, it is important to begin by having the loving and kind mind towards our enemies. So therefore, in the practice of immeasurable equanimity, we can think of one person that we detest, that we dislike, and then try to feel good about that person. So it's in the beginning a job for the mind. So we try to be loving, try to be kind to that person. So in this way we can train our mind to get rid of attachment and aversion. It is also important to realize that the afflictive emotions of attachment and aversion are too heavy for the mind. And when the mind gets exhausted with these emotions, then it also brings some problems in the body. Even it can cause all kinds of sicknesses. So therefore, understanding these negative results of the afflictive emotions such as attachment and so forth, we can try to feel more encouraged to be loving and kind towards enemies.
Ta nga la ti sem la mga sa ta ta da wo bin kong tho che dang lang do sa ta da la lo yang ne sa mo tong du ti te lo yang ni yang do yang du ta ran na phin yang ma ta no yang ma ti ba ma ke ma ti la ti te yo thu le ta te sa pa ta ho lo yang ne ta kho la nga lang ko ya mo do nga lang na nga rang sem thu pan ma do mi ma do kho ga ta nga chot nu ti ma ra sin ti nga lin cha plong lo te re ke no sa mo ta re ke no ji ang du ta te kho nga la phin yang ma ta nu ma ji pa ma ba ma re ti la ti yo thu le ta ho ta da lo yang go so.
So in the beginning you can visualize one enemy in order to practice equanimity, and then try to get rid of hatred towards that person. When you keep training your mind in that, gradually that same enemy appears to you like a neutral person, a person who is not really an enemy but not really a friend. So until that happens, it is important to focus on the enemy. And also it is helpful to think about the harmfulness of anger, harmfulness of hatred. Hatred, as soon as it enters in our mind, it creates obstacles, it creates distractions, and it makes us helpless to slip in confusion, and then we perceive everything with an error.
Ta ti ma par ma til ta sam no ta na ti te chra thoma mi pa ka tu ne ti rang ka phama ma je pa mi pa phama se pa ti rang ka ma chu pa ta da la san dong ne ta te ki che wan de ka phama nga ki phama ta ha che wan de phama u so nga nyen di ni nyen ti na nga ka che che wa che dong da ka che nga ke sem ka che wa da na te ta de ti ta ti ma par ma tham che ti che wa de yo thwe rang te da lo yang go so.
And then when you have in your practice, when you have transformed your enemy into somebody who is neutral, now the next step you can think about the truth that all sentient beings have our parents. All sentient beings have been kind and compassionate at one point of the time we spend in samsara. So therefore this neutral being also deserves our affection and love and compassion, because they have shown love and affection in former lives to us.
Tin thani ta da ta ni par ma song ka te tin nga kan ha yo la che sen ji thap chi ta rang ke chen de pha ma tang che mi pa ti rang ke che be to po ga sa la che mi pa ti te lan hing je che ba tan da ka lo ma chi par de gom ti tan da lo ma chi par de tan da gom ma hin na ti rang ke da pha nu chin du a mi phin ta do mi le tan da do pha ta nhom de sma ta mok ta nhom to ti phi mi nu me son te rang che mi pa ka tho ro ho la ma ti te ke ta rang ke che wan de tho ni ta ni ni chin pha ma la ka se che ba na ti te cha ma la ta da ni par ma song ka te data do tin che ba te le ri tanda lo jang go so.
So in this way, the training of immeasurable equanimity should go on until we are able to have the same kind of affection, same kind of love for all living beings. When we are able to regard each and every living being as our own parents. Equanimity doesn't mean to be in a blank mind. It doesn't mean not to care about anybody and not to harm anybody. It means not to care, not to harm anybody, but to care about everyone with the same heart, with the same feeling. So if we are just in a kind of, if we stop harming others and if we stop being kind to others, that kind of equanimity is a kind of ignorance.
Nga ke tsewa ta tse dong ra nga ke nyusa phama yin chin la tsewa tse dong kan da una te ta nam kha ke ka chao ke sem jin tham chi cha yu song di nam khe ka chao ke sem jin tham chi ta ti te tsewa tse dong te ti chap tho ba ti te dong nyam ki chap tho ba ta ong go song than te lu ti tan hong chen ni san ni la.
In this life, usually most of the time we have very special love and affection towards our mother. So when this kind of feeling becomes available in your heart for all living beings without exception, at that point it is called immeasurable equanimity, because the number of sentient beings is immeasurable. It is vast as the space, and when your compassion is extended to each and every living being, it also becomes immeasurable.
Samba chemi kum jola thole ta ta nyon chemi ke lo jang ne tin kham som ke sem jin tham samba chimi yor to nyam kin hon ba se cha du ta development do ne tin pen na ta samba do ju pe ta to chung chung tu ni phama ke ji jong sin ne so ne sam jong sin du ta tin ra de samba khra ngo sang sam me se ve so an da ba do ta sam jong wi ne samba sem jin tham de ba din do ko samba jin de ta ko samba ngo dong da ne de ri de la
Kamsum kan
ta ta nyam kin hon ba de ta kham som ke sem jin tham ji ko samba ke chim bo ke nyam kin hon ba re do sam tang me pa te se thara ta te la samba gom do de samba gom do de ta sam jong sin sang si me se so an da ba do ta ko ji jong wi de de ko sam to ngo de ri so la pin do ko samba zong ji jong wi.
So after we have trained our mind in the immeasurable equanimity, then the next step we can take is to train in immeasurable love. By the practice of immeasurable equanimity, our mind becomes absolutely free from discriminations. We have the same kind of feelings towards all sentient beings. Now, in the practice of immeasurable love, we try to develop the willingness, the wish to benefit all sentient beings who are now equal to us, who are now equally, dear to us. So this practice of love is analogous to a mother bird trying to feed her chick.
That market that the total to rank it and Gangar Gatse Tamche Che the Su. That he took the Gander Lord, say Gander, not let it nothing tell let take the zoo. The rank a tap, not talk to the tap, jam tap, brought up corner. That's not on it. The rank a lunga is some car, tell it to Mbasi, don't ask it. They pay that to that, same thing that Tamche Sema Deva Tang, Negap Deva, they got the Sinic Deva Tunati, rank a lunga is some car, and bear passy go coyote, only.
So the kind of love a mother bird has for its chicks is very strong and it's very profound. The mother bird can withstand any kind of obstacles, any kind of difficulties in the process of bringing up the chicks. The mother bird knows various methods to make the baby birds comfortable, to protect them, to make sure that they are safe and they are warm and so forth. So in the same way, through the practice of loving kindness, we can train our mind to have the same kind of feeling towards all living beings. And with that kind of feeling, we can temporarily establish sentient beings in more fortunate states of samsaric existence. And in the long run, with that kind of feeling, we can establish sentient beings in Buddhahood, the ultimate achievement.
Semkin tamche ta samza la ti rang dena chi na nyam de tenda de chi de dina samte khona dong de nyen de tenda sam tong kho ri ti me de wa da dong han do ba semkin so yang mi in du ti te tenda yin de wona semkin tamche lu ke mong sung sa de ta de be jo ge wa de mi pa ta ti me ge wa jo la ti long chu do ne rang ke che gen do jo ti la lin si jo ti ni kho si jo to jo sung ni ta tenda ri de pa ne de wan do jang ti de wa ke jo do ma chi dong ha khona la ti ta chủ đề là thành ra thì ta rằng số sự tin đối ba ta đeo ta chỉ ba con số nó chém mà rồi nhàn thì rằng cái xem cái ta rằng cái đối ba ta đeo chúng nó chém mà rồi sang thành ra cái thằng sam ba cái giống thập của cái yuri số này.
Each and every living being wish to be happy. Each living being always find out ways to be happy, to be content, and so forth. So therefore, we need to be loving and kind towards these sentient beings because they wish happiness and do not wish suffering. However, these sentient beings are too ignorant. They wish happiness, but they always create the causes of suffering. They wish to get rid of sufferings, but they do not know how to get rid of suffering. They mistake the cause of happiness for the cause of suffering, the cause of suffering for the cause of happiness. In this way, they are lost in ignorance, and therefore we need to develop the genuine kind heart of loving kindness, which is the definition of which is wishing all sentient beings to be happy. That is the definition of loving kindness. It's a wish for all sentient beings to be happy.
Da dang yin che mi le da da re ke sam to na do ti pe de rang ke la pe lo yin na pa ma zi che song ba ta ti rang la pe lin don ti yin na te da ga ha go ho li de go ho li sam te da yin de che mi pa ta da re lo tho la gom tho le ong go so da ju ki le.
It is very important to train our mind until we feel that ourselves and other sentient beings are one and the same. One and the same in the sense that like we wish to be happy, they also wish to be happy. Like we wish to get rid of sufferings, they also wish to get rid of sufferings. So therefore, all sentient beings deserve happiness, and all sentient beings have the right to be free from suffering. So therefore, we need to have this heart which is in equanimity, which can accommodate all living beings. In the scripture it is said that take your own body as an example and do not harm others. It is also important to train ourselves in loving kindness and compassion physically. It means that we should train ourselves to look at sentient beings with a very, kind face, with a very open face, we need to speak to them with pleasant words that are soothing and that brings great feeling to them. Like in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, Shantideva advises, in order to train in the path of bodhisattvas, even if you are looking at sentient beings, look straight with the smiling face that is, admirable, that is pleasant. So this is also a part of training in a good heart, in bodhicitta. And then even we can train our speech in the bodhisattva conduct or activity. If we use harsh words, if we speak unpleasantly to others, then such words can bring a lot of suffering to others. So therefore, we need to abstain from harsh words that are unpleasant to hear. It is said that unpleasant words do not have an edge of a blade, but they are able to cut the mind of sentient beings into pieces. So therefore, we have to be very careful with our speech, our words, and always try not to despise others, always try not to put down others, and always try to be truthful and pleasant in our words. That's the verbal training of being kind. So in the practice of loving kindness, it is important not to be a hypocrite. It's important to be genuine in the practice of loving kindness. For instance, if you practice loving kindness so that you can become famous, so that you will be repaid in the same way by others, if these kind of expectations are there in your practice, then it's improper. For instance, if you speak pleasantly, if you speak truthfully to others, and if you behave like a bodhisattva because you wish to be famous, you wish to be revered by others, you want recognition and so forth, then that kind of practice of loving kindness is incorrect, and it's based on some kind of self-interest. So therefore, the practice of loving kindness should be genuine. It should come straight from your heart, and it should be completely selfless. In the practice of loving kindness, it's also important to have perpetual mindfulness, and at all times we need to make supplications so that we become someone who is harmless to sentient beings, so that we can become someone who can be beneficial, who can be helpful and kind and compassionate to others throughout the lives that we might take in samsara. And also, it's very important to maintain a very friendly relationship with companions, with people with whom we live, because every relationship are impermanent, and we are all like different guests assembled in one place, and very soon we are going to separate from each other. So therefore, it is very important to maintain a very friendly atmosphere among companions and among the people with whom we live. And also, occasionally it's important to reflect on the great benefits of training our body, speech and mind in loving kindness.
Tha Rinpoche ni le ni tanda thare le ni ta jumi le tanda ma ka le kha de ta yong Rinpoche ta na de ne ban da ta pha ma tham che lo dan thong po ri gen kho ri tanda tha pa de ni sam ba sam jong si sam jong yin na to ni ning je ning po ji gom de le ti che par mi so ni tanda ne ko da nga na ni ti te ta de ti pha ma tham che la pa la rang ke pa ji ke che ba si ne te tin che ba ke tin chin yin ba si ne ti te gen kho tu le ti ye me ju ba de Now, like Pinyon Che, think the cars here, I think they can check parting with the part chairs on the Tandam, George had taken us only this on the
and the great master Atisha has advised his disciples to have special loving kindness and compassion towards people who have come from a very long way, and to people who have been sick for a long time, and parents. These kind of beings deserve special love and compassion. If one can train in loving kindness and compassion towards these kind of people and all sentient beings, then that kind of practice is equivalent to the practice of the unification of emptiness and compassion. Such a practice of being loving and kind and compassionate to people who are sick and parents and so forth is equivalent to the practice of uniting compassion and emptiness. And also, Guru Padmasambhava has said that taking care of people who are of age, people who are old, if we show them our love and affection through our body, speech and mind, and take care of them, that is a very powerful practice, and it has great benefit.
뭐 노바 가르치간 티 노네들하는 총 코르냐 마도 대 코라스는 피냐요 말이 손내린다.
Then we might have the question that since we are in this world, there's no way for us to always abstain from harming others. We have to harm others at some point of our life. But if we really think deeply about this, then harming others is not beneficial at all times, not even in this life. For instance, if we harm a person, if we kill a person, for instance, then as a result of that negative karma, we have to face different punishments, and we lose a lot of wealth in some cases. So therefore, the non-virtuous deeds of harming others bring unhappiness at all times.
Ta te ta ti rang ke ma pha no pa sin na te ke phin pa me pa te shi li ke ti dim sin ke ta kham sun na ne pe sin kin tham ti la ti rang ke phin na de na te de ba thon na che ma ro nya ba tan da ka sam ba ke zong do ne ti kham sun sin kin tham ti ta rang ke lu nga yi song ko ni ti sam ba ke ta de ba tan tin pa re tan da sam ba re sam na che le tan da la ta nga ka thap ne tan da sam na tan chat le ta lo yong tho bo de ri song te ke ta sam ba de zo.
So therefore, it is very important to have a great understanding that by harming others, there is no way to be happy. So therefore, if we get rid of harming others, then that becomes the source of happiness. And because of that, it is advisable, it is more intelligent to be loving and kind to all sentient beings in the 3,000 worlds. In this way, as a result of such infinite loving kindness, we can accomplish great benefits.
Ta hinje gom je la thol de hinje la ti hinje ngon ro de ta simkin dong ha ta po ka nar de le simkin shi la ti meng do ne ti dong ha ke ne te ta ta ba re ya ka san na sa ne te hinje ne ti dong ha dran na sa ne ta ra sa ba su ne ta hinje ngo te song de ba.
So the next practice after love is compassion, the immeasurable compassion. The definition of compassion is wishing sentient beings to be free from suffering.
Ta pe na ma na ji le zong dong na jiu ne ti ka zong che zong tai mi de li de dong ha chen bo khu de wu na ta de da le rang ke sem ke hin je je ba ta ti ni xin ba ke la ta zhen do le so su jo le da che ma khan de le de na ti ti ko le su no li ke ni kha dong ha ba ta tan che san do ti da la ta sem ke hin je je thob jo ta do me bo le ri so ne.
So in practice of immeasurable compassion, we can think about somebody who is in the prison, who is suffering, who is undergoing a lot of suffering in prison. Or we can think about animals who are in the house of slaughter, who is about to be killed. If we think about the pain, the anguish, the suffering such sentient beings feel, then that can trigger compassion.
Ta pe na xie lo de na ta xin pa ke te su la nye ka pe la na ta yin le ta xie lo ju su da sam san de yin lo le yo no ti lo de pa bon dong ne te rang yin pa le sam no tang ta rang yin na ta che tar si san ti na sam no tong ti ta rang yin na ta te tu sa tang ja sa de ni thon ne me shi ka ne me shi ta da re sam no tong ne ti rang ke chi bong ke pa go go na go ma tha ta ka ta na sa ti thol chola dong ha rang ka no yo da ta do sam no tong do ti phin je te thop go kho yu ri so ne.
So it's also what we can do in this practice is try to put ourselves in the place of that animal who is about to be slaughtered, or try to put ourselves in the place of the prisoner, and try to feel the pain, try to feel the fear. What would we do if we were in that situation?
Da te kia long de la ina sina te tambo so ju so ko wang bong ga ni ko ti wong ga ni ke dong ha ka che re da te kia chat du ni ngin song la tie na da dong ha ka che re da ten da la sam no tong du ni dong ha te rang ten da dong ha yon da rang da tho de chot lang do ni te ke da lo yon do gong chi go song da.
So we can think about the pain of separating the body and consciousness in the case of the animals who is about to be slaughtered. And after the consciousness has been separated from the body, it has to follow its karma, and it has to take birth in the lower realms of samsara and so forth. If we take all these sufferings on ourselves, if we put ourselves into this situation, and for a while if we pretend to be that animal, then that can help us develop the heart of compassion.
Ta tanda yin sem kin su pa ta angan the dong han the de pa te de ni rang de yang phama yin pa ka lo yan ti da je wan de thon phama ma yin na ti je ba chra thoma mi pan ti phama se ma myo pa mi pa phama se yung pe na ti phama te ke din che wa de la san du ti tanda ke ta dong han tanda nyong de gar si sa ni tanda la sa mo tong de ti dong han sa ta pe la hin je ti zola mi pa ti mu zu pa ti rang che ma thun tho pa tanda ma pa ti bo yong de gong go de ri song de ri.
And also all sentient beings who are suffering, who are imprisoned, who are the victim of slaughters, they have been our parents, and they have been kind and compassionate to us. And now all these mother sentient beings are in tremendous suffering. In this way, when we feel intense compassion towards others, finally we feel so moved that we can feel tears from our eyes. Until this until that happens, we need to train in the immeasurable compassion.
Ta ra na te da ning je cha sa ning je je cha we ji la ti je na je thap song cha we ji de na ta ta ri pha ma sen ji de na dong ha yong do mo de ti dong ha yong go je ge jim si ga ri ri da sa na ti te mu me ge we sa sha ti le ge de we ti de la ning le ta me ge we le su ji ti ba tham che ang si de da ge ta dong ha te ta we yong du ti te ta me ge wa ju no mo tham che la ti da ning je de gong si go ko yu ri song.
And then we can reflect on the karmas that sentient beings create. Sentient beings are suffering in different ways as a result of their former bad karmas. And even now they are continuing to create more and more negative karmas, which are going to result in sufferings in the future. So we can look at this situation of sentient beings and try to feel compassion, because they are too ignorant. They are creating the cause of their own sufferings.
Tin thar tang kham son sim chi tham chi la ta hing je te to ge ma nam khat nya ba sim chi tham chi la ti hing je cha pa si don ti ta da dong ha len hang dong ha ga sim chi cha yu ba te sa na ti hing je te je kho de ri so.
And also we can think about sentient beings in the hell realm, sentient beings in the animal realm, sentient beings in the hungry ghost realm, and so forth. In the hell realm, sentient beings have the suffering of getting burnt, the suffering of getting boiled and chopped and cut and so forth. In the animal realm, sentient beings have the suffering of being stupid, and the suffering of being killed by each other, the suffering of being used by humans and so forth. And then in the hungry ghost realm, they have the suffering of thirst and hunger. In this way, all sentient beings in the 6 realms go through different kinds of sufferings, and if we reflect carefully on this nature, then that can also bring compassion in our hearts. In this kind of various ways, when we develop compassion for all sentient beings, equally, when all sentient beings are included in our compassion, that is called immeasurable compassion.
That is great. Tola ne besenji thamje le na donga pakcha da je pa thamje dan ne tin je deva zo pa sanje je kong phang je thom na chama ro nyam pa tin hin ta pa tan da si ti te tin je deva thopa kho san tan da hona ja je ta tan da yo si yo de an ka che so ya.
So out of such great compassion, we need to always pray, always supplicate, so that all sentient beings become liberated from all sufferings of the samsaric existence and attain the ultimate happiness of enlightenment.
Tin hin je gom ji tara nga ke yu so ne ka ni tho tin ti dong ha yong tu ba nyam tha je ba tin sim tin ka no la meng do ne tan da hin je de rang ji ju je le sin gong ko khu ri ma to yang tan da ka lo jong ma thop na ti yang pha che chap san le gom de na ti te che chap ko yor san na lu de hin je che yin ba rang ju je ma to tin to ne yu so je dong ha yong tu ba ti me su kan do ti da ju je tha tan da ben su chi ko le di so ne.
In order to make a compassion to really take place in our mind, in our heart, we need to be very practical. We need to think about, a particular sentient being who is suffering, and feel genuine compassion for that person, and then proceed. After having felt genuine compassion for one person, then we can feel the same for 2 and 3 and 4 and finally all sentient beings. Otherwise, if we just try to have a general compassion which has no particular object, then that kind of compassion cannot really progress. So therefore, we need to begin very practically with one person and then extend to all.
He said, "Mamma, you didn't have it, and I come to Bacala. Then Dala, the part, the Gapache, Dokela, Hinges somebody, for Chili, Sonary, Hinges somebody, they could partake dog to the Della Cosande, the part the dancing, round so that sort of yin so down Chadang said the case, this 100 days, the dog to the Marie, so here and there.
So through the practice of compassion, we can even get rid of fears caused by humans, fear caused by non-humans, and all other obstacles. Without the compassionate heart, if we try to avert enemies or obstructors through anger, through hatred, it is not possible. It is only through the heart of compassion we can get rid of enemies and obstructors.
Ta pe jana ye tu malare pa khong chonglong chong ge zong zo sat na ti khong yok no ka la ge gi ja pon bana ya ka zo te chom chor ti ne ti a cha ra me pho ko sam de pa tan da khong re ta khong zam che na na de tan da si ti khong la so la phen na na phen bi tan da ze ti ta khong ge ya dan la so wa ta de ni ya dan gom ye ram gom ha ta ha de ni a cha ro tan je phan ro ma do ta so ji Jack to the Tandase. Ta Garatana, some Contosantang, Nata, Lama Horama Paketini, Nancy Samson Water, and Semi Usat on Panila, on the Tepa Hindu. That doing get the zone that any rank and I see Guayamado. There's that see Guaduamado.
Nancy Samson Water can
Semi on Balangote, Nama, Nancy Tangi Samson Water, Semi on Balangote, Dogora. Seni tong pa sa la ngote ti tan teng ta ba to la yo ne ti to ni hing hing bo te ti sin thot na ta ge sro la zong yo te ri ma do sa ne ti khong te la me dang nga de tin tin tham de tham che khong ne ta ta deng ti pa deng de ji de ne to ni ke hing hing bo zong de ti deng ji ti a ta ra tham che ko pa tu de te te ten ne ti tu song sa te ti hing je ke ta da tu thot sa do ta te pe he mo
in the life of Milarepa, there is an incident when he conquered obstructors through compassion. Once he was in a cave called Choklung Tsang, and then when he came out of the cave for some purpose, and then when he returned, he found some kind of demons in his cave, and these demons had huge eyes, and they were kind of retinues of the king of demons. At that point, in order to get rid of these demons, first Milarepa made supplications to his Idam, and then he did the generation stage practice, the visualization, and then he began to say mantras of wrathful activities. But that did not make any difference. The demons remained in the cave, and then finally Milarepa realized that his master Marpalotawa had introduced the whole world of appearances and possibilities as the projection of his own mind, and then his mind had been introduced by Marpalotawa to be the unity or unification of compassion and wisdom. And when he realized that, when he remembered that instruction of his master, he felt tremendous unconditional compassion for the demons, and right away the demons left the cave. So that's how Milarepa got rid of those maras, those demons, through the power of compassion.
From 13 ke dat da chembo to da da ti ma de pa te ke ti ma tho yin ne da ari yor na che da che song ne na sam ne sa to tho te sa nan turn tin thor ba te tin kin to de ne ti tu ko kam da de ni da sa mo de che ma mo pro de ne da ma la de pa sha ban ju ne ri sa kha wo ti khong le so ya han tin du thak ba la phan tin ne ti che ka ma nga to ti ta cho ka sa la da na so da nga to ni la ti ka ma ran je ta mi song ti khong ta de ji de yang to da we song ti to ta chul ta rong te sa ri chul la sin la kun theng do chu so yang khum de da si de chu kun theng do de ni ta sa mo ka chor mo ka la la ne la pa cha de san ne song sa chu pa cha de san ni song ne yi san ni ke te ni de ma hin na chu song che se na ngam ro ran san tong pa de to ma to na de ngai me che yin yang yu zo ne ti te hie ra da sa mo chu ngan tu ma ti pa song de kon se so ya an ti de ro ma we ne pan ti de sa ni ta kon le
the percept do the kadis
pa cha de san ni song so Teni semni song de sem ke teni de hi ma thap na chu ke song de na se le ke nga ro li ma chu ke sem ke tong ni de to ma thap na de nga ma chen de ma mo de yin da yang yu ri
tong ni so de ni je ma. So at another time Milarepa was fully absorbed in samadhi, in meditation, and in that cave, in that area, there was a kind of female demon who had made her place in the rock, in front of which Milarepa was meditating. And usually demons and obstructors cannot harm a yogi when he or she is in meditative absorption. So that demon was just waiting for an opportunity to test Milarepa. She was just waiting for Milarepa to get out of his meditative absorption in the state of conventional thoughts. So this demon made some noise, and Milarepa kind of thought that what kind of noise is it? And that was a kind of discursive thought, and that became an opportunity for the demon to really manifest. And she manifested to Milarepa as a red dog, a female dog, and then began to bite Milarepa's feet, and she wouldn't let it go. And then Milarepa kind of pulled his feet out of the mouth of the dog, and the dog pulled it, the other way. So at that point, Milarepa reflected on the unification of compassion and emptiness, and at that point the dog released his toe, his feet or toe, and then the dog told Milarepa that all demons and all maras that appear are projections of your own habitual patterns. If you realize the true nature of the mind, there is no demon. But if you have not realized the true nature of mind, I am not the only demon. There are many more to come. So the female demon in her song to Milarepa, she also says that when the true nature of your mind is realized, in that realization there is no self-grasping, no notion of the self. At that point, the emptiness and compassion are unified. There is no self because there is the realization of emptiness, and there is unconditional compassion because of not having this ego-centeredness. Because in the absence of ego fixation, in the absence of the wrong notion of self, there is the unity of compassion and wisdom. That is called absolute bodhicitta. And the demon said that all kinds of situations, all kinds of incidents that are obstacles in the path, they are all coming from the self-cherishing attitude. If you realize, the demon said to Milarepa, if you realize the true nature of mind, and if you awaken in the unification of emptiness and compassion, then all demons become your kind of retinues. Even I will become your friend. So therefore, by understanding all appearances as the mere projection of mind, it generates unconditional compassion. By the afflictive emotion of desire and hatred and so forth, there is no way to tame demons. There is no way to tame obstructors. That's what the demon said.
Mamata, then border sato, Yavan, Kinti Shavan, so Kona by Yogu to Latin, and that's only that when we get to the team, we hands on Nampachula to buy the Martin, something Sevasi that in that Sevasene, to wear that in that, then by the Latin by Yoni Mari, Chiloki, Yoni Martin, so around Rogin, then those on the Kona by 2 months in that, turn it all, take it, Magic Latin, but on that Latin, take it young years at Kona Pagas. Some 2 times a market and that's a lady is only. Think that I should.
The boat is on the thing. Capsule. And the shadowing in the Suda.
Pompo,
and the Kong Gandam was a Suda.
The Japan has on the thing. There were that Homera Pompo, National Homera on the things and have some more shoot that point of anything, something they pass it in. They take them but lot on the Hawk Gandhi quality. They own the Maris on Tata and answer that number Golico, number Golico, you start thinking of you something that you can teach him down by a nickel. The tar who qualities on the tie down at the end of it. The tar do that, something and so I may read your card Chava. The tar around the means as on Tobata, around the Master Sazon, good on it, something times a pink talk about that. Don't get she qualities on him. During
the time of the Dharma King Chisong Dezen, when Buddhism was yet to flourish in Tibet, the practitioners of Bon religion, they practice animal sacrifice and they use blood and so forth as offerings. At that point, the second Buddha, Guru Padmasambhava, and the great abbot Vimalamitra and Shantarakshita, they became very disappointed by those kind of practices, and they told the king that if you do not order these people to stop these non-virtuous deeds, there is no way to, kind of incorporate Buddhism in this kind of culture. So first you have to make the rule to get rid of animal sacrifices and all other kinds of rituals that are harmful to others. In this way, from the beginning, Guru Padmasambhava and these great masters encourage non-violence and encourage to get rid of harming sentient beings, and advise the people in Tibet to always train their minds in loving kindness and compassion, and get rid of harming others. So, if you have developed compassion in your heart, then that's it, and that's what you try to achieve through the path of Dharma. Even if you are not learned in different kinds of sciences, different kinds of subjects of Dharma, if you have the heart of compassion, then you have accomplished all Dharma. It's like the entire Dharma has come into your palms. And also, the feeling of compassion is a very powerful antidote to non-virtuous deeds and defilements. Through compassion, you can purify all non-virtuous deeds and defilements. And of course, compassion is one of the root cause of bodhicitta, the awakened mind.
ta te to cho khorisan dong ha cho wa ke ti thu mi pa ri ta ri ti ta kon cho zum na so ran dem ne ta te hing je gom ne ta tin da ti dong ha te da le ke yo to le ong ko sa tin da mu na so ran dem ti sem ke te zu me phe pa da ta to no sam ti tham ji dong ha ji ta chet da na te than tha che ong na sam san do sam ta da so lo sing ne de ong ko so ne ti ta ha ti ya ta.
So the feeling of compassion should be so strong, should be unbearable to your heart. For instance, if a mother without hands has a lovely child, and if the child is being drawn in a river, how desperate would she feel? How compassionate would she feel towards her child? In the same way, we need to feel very strong, unbearable compassion towards sentient beings, and always make supplications to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, so that all these sentient beings are protected and are blessed with our compassion.
Ta gawa gom jo te ri ti gawa gom do ji ta sentient tham che la re ru ta tom jo nga thang khar je long ju ti che re wa khorma ma long ju je pa tan da ri ti tham che la ti rang ke te lan tha do tan rin sin me ji la ti te la rang ke gawa gom jo te ta gawa ngom bo te
ti kan top jo wang thang mang bo sang ha go chin
khar je wang thang long ju
khar je
wang thang long ju che re ma khorma ma ta tan da ri te la ti rang ke tha do tan rin sin mi pa te la tan da ri ji te sam ga jo te gawa ngom bo te la da te kon ta to ya pori da san te ko yin na ya pori de rang sam ga ji ta ga ba kon to te.
So then finally the fourth immeasurable is immeasurable joy. So the practice of immeasurable joy is about getting rid of jealousy and trying to be appreciative of the achievements of others. For instance, when some people seem to be in great position, when some people seem to be having great power, great authority, and great wealth, and wonderful life, free from sicknesses, and great companions, great people around. When this kind of happiness of others are seen, we should not be jealous of them, but rather appreciative of it. We should rejoice in the fact that these sentient beings are having a wonderful life, a life free from sickness and so forth. So when this kind of feeling of joy, joy meaning and the feeling of appreciation towards others reach all sentient beings, that is the immeasurable joy.
Da re ga de long ju da tin pe sen ji kin da re thong pa de la ni rang ga wa gom ju ta da ro de le lak pa de ko un tho pa jin jo pa da ti da ri da kha de long ju din de san che ba mi pa de la da ro hirap che ba da hirap che ri de no long ju de ko be ju thun pa re da ko ge so la ko thun pa ra nan ko be thu ne re da hirap da de ba si ne ni ko le pe son so pa ge jo ba ri ong ko sa da ro ti kha la ya
and when we see people who are happy and who are well and who has great wealth, we shouldn't be jealous of them, but we should instead make supplications in our hearts so that they can become happier, so that they can become wealthier, so that they can get better and better. And also we can make great supplications in our mind, in our hearts, so that they develop the great intentions in which way they can utilize their wealth, their life for the service of others. So this kind of thinking is part of the training of immeasurable joy.
Kha je long tu je te pa te ta we sim tin kha je long tu me pa tham je la tin te ta we je na jia ma rong te ta we je pa che ri na ngar ga nyam de tin yang ni yang de rang ka sim ta da ri lo je te pa ri si je da ที่เตรังนะที่กาวาเจติตังโปโลจามปะกาลรังเจลาซารังกะพาเจซากาซาริเซมกเจวาเชซาริละตันดาคาเจลงจูดินเดเลอุนะที่ตาเตละตังกาวาเจซาดิเกวังดิเตละตังเจจีที่เตเจซาทานรังปาดปาดละเจจีที่ตินชานี่รังกะอันดาวมะกาซาละคาเจลงจูนะที่เตละตาริมุสิกาทาดองดินซิมิจิที่กาวาโตชอเจลทะเลบินตาโตยังโกสง
And then also we can think about people who are not famous, who do not have great status, who are not wealthy, and try to develop the genuine wish for them to be wealthy, for them to be prosperous, for them to be famous and so forth. In the practice of immeasurable joy, it is appropriate to begin with somebody to whom we have great affection. Think about a person who is loving towards us, who with whom we have a great, relation, and then try to develop the wish for that person so that he or she can be wealthy, rich, and live long, and so forth. And then after that, we can think about somebody who is neutral, who is neither a friend nor an enemy, and try to have the same kind of wishes, same kind of great feelings toward that person. And then finally, we can think about an enemy, and try to have the feeling of joy, feeling of appreciation towards that enemy. So that's how you can progress in the training.
ตายิงขาจะลองจูเยดิที่ลาปาละรังกระดาตาที่มกาสัตตันดาขาจะลองจูเยดินะที่เตลตาทาโดตาเนื้อสินเรียนสินตันดาก็ทดลองยิงพาที่สวัสดิ์ลองยิงพาส่งทุเลสิเนี่ยที่เตลเดวาตาเดประชาธรรมเจแล้วที่กาวาเชปาร์ติกองที่กาวาจะรังอยู่ละเจกาวงานที่ที่ยังยาบนไม่ปังงานโยโกส่งที่เตตาตาห้องเกิดงานตัวโยตาห้องที่กันตาห้องที่ตาห้องรอที่ยองตาห้องที่รังก็อยู่เจชัดด้วยซึ่งที่ทำเช่นยังอยู่ช่วงปลายดังที่งานนะตัวยังยาไม่ปังงานโยสัมปะละเตตาตัวโยหินเจเตตาโยกาวาเตตาโยที่เชมิเจเลยแต่เขาโยดูตาห้องเชมิก็ไม่ป่าตาห้องเชมิองค์เลยที่เตละตาห้องกันยังยาหินเจกันยังยาสัมปะกันยังยากาวากันยังยากันที่เตละก็เลยที่ส่งเลยที่เขาโยจิตชัดตัวที่ไม่ปังงานน่าจินิโยก็เลยที่ส่ง
So in this way, when you train your mind to be joyful with the achievements of others, when you train your mind to rejoice in the well-being, in the prosperity and wealth of others, gradually you can get rid of jealousy, and you can feel extreme joy in your mind. So when this joy dawns in your mind, at that point you can try to just absorb in that joy and set your mind one-pointedly on that joy. In the same way, when you're practicing equanimity, first you train your mind in equanimity, and when your mind becomes free from attachment and aversion, when it reaches the state of equanimity, try to absorb in that, try to be in that state of equanimity one-pointedly. It's a kind of meditation. So that is called the meditative absorption on equanimity, meditative absorption on joy. And in the same way, when you are practicing loving kindness, by developing the wish for sentient beings to be happy, when you finally feel the existence of loving kindness in you, in that state, try to meditate, try to absorb in that state, and try to be one-pointedly in that state. That is called meditative absorption on loving kindness. And the same thing can be done with compassion. When you feel a genuine compassion for living beings, all living beings, try to abide in that state, try to be absorbed in that state one-pointedly as long as you can. So that's how you can practice the 4 immeasurables.
ที่เชื่อบ้านแต่ยาเสียสารชอบสัมผัสน้ำผ่าทางจิต Semkin Tamki, the Don to the Semkin, the Semkin to that Tamki, that in the Deva, Locus Hanja de compound a good tapar, the entire Deva the time, Unto Sat and May compound a good Yotanda, in Tucson and Amipatang, Semkin and Tandara, Tonkona, that make Hillary. This that Semkin Rana, so lev Anangati, you want to tang your bar, Yen, you think around so the Magata, what you marry, so tell Magata, the Magata Tabu marry, so. The Randu, Tado, Randu, Tado, one is on the Yina Yunti, nothing on the Tonto Mari. Rang that Tado say, I'll take a depth of what you cycle already, sonnery.
So, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas always aspire to establish sentient beings temporarily in the higher states of samsara and then ultimately in the state of Buddhahood. That's the only thing they always try to achieve. That's the only thing they always have in their intention. In order to follow in their steps, we need to train ourselves in getting rid of jealousy. Jealousy is a kind of blindfold. When our mind is occupied by jealousy, it is very hard to see the good qualities in others. So therefore, it is very hard to appreciate the goodness of others. So therefore, it is very important to get rid of the afflictive emotion of jealousy, so that we can appreciate the prosperity and wealth and health and so forth of others. We have no reason to be jealous of them, because they are happy, they are wealthy and so forth as a result of their own great karmas, and that's what they deserve, and we have no right to be jealous of that.
They take it the last Sanjak Usuna, Sanjak and Date Tuliman, Damon, or then Damon to get Jim Chase, Ranjut, Rangajut and Hadok and Hessundu. That is Hanja, you won't think that is in Toko Mari. You won't think the Mountain Sati, the Papa Samati, yet Toko Mari. The Papa Magic Target, 2 years and have taken Newton Marontis, 2 years and have Yuksaki, who call them Martin salary. They pay nothing, who think about Omdin the Shayu Gala. That has in the Gala of Bagati, Omdin and Hado, the Sijana, Kona said, Omdin the Congo was going to let it, they might have logic, the pay that the Hado, the center, and directly the part tap watcher, Tasaka, and the on it.
So, it is very important to realize that the afflictive emotion of jealousy and competitiveness, the afflictive emotion of being competitive. These afflictive emotions are great obstructions in the path of Dharma. When these afflictive emotions are there in our mind, it's very hard to see even the great qualities of the Buddhas. Therefore, people with intense jealousy and the competitive emotions, they cannot be helped by the Buddhas. For instance, because of jealousy, such a person cannot see the good qualities of the Buddhas, and when the good qualities of the Buddhas are not seen, that person definitely cannot develop faith and devotion in the Buddha. And without faith and devotion in the Buddha, there is no way to receive the blessing of the Buddha. So, therefore, jealousy is a great obstacle in seeing the good qualities, in developing devotion, in receiving blessing. In the time of the Buddha Shakyamuni himself, there were certain people who couldn't see any quality in the Buddha because of their, mind filled with jealousy and pride and so forth. For instance, Devadatta and another monk by the name of Lekpe Karma. I don't know the name in Sanskrit, but Devadatta, the cousin of the Buddha, he couldn't find the Buddha to be a Buddha. He always found the Buddha to be somebody very bad. That was because of his jealousy.
Samba zampo kona, sandore samba zampo re, kiet subjo samba zampo kiet goltini. Samba geta megi sedal, gede zunghi chijong jimdo, so samba zampo kiet tumna, ko samba tege jondo di lek ana de top chijong de samba la rale do samba ke jondo le yin, so ne. Di samba zampo de hap to de gachi, so ta samba ne.
So the four immeasurables are the main causes of bodhicitta. If one wish bodhicitta to be established in the mind, then it's important to train the mind in the four immeasurables. The quintessence of the four immeasurables is to have a good heart. So if you always aspire to have a very good heart, a heart which is open, which is kind towards others, then that's the essence of the four immeasurables. When a heart is open, when it is good, when it is virtuous, then all actions that follows are also virtuous. The virtuous deeds and the non-virtuous deeds, they are reflections of virtuous and non-virtuous states of mind. So whatever you do on the basis of a virtuous thought, it is virtuous deed. Whatever you do on the basis of a non-virtuous thought, that whatever that deed, whether it's verbal or physical, it is non-virtuous. So therefore, we need to focus more on the state of mind and make sure it is virtuous, rather than focusing on the action.
Samba zampo regati rando kan trimi pare ke samba zampo ke de ke ngaka lunga ke lega kat den ale ka de gewal jo thok song ni rando kan trimi samba zang chat lunga ke le ka se na gewal jo thok song ra.
So with a good heart, whatever you say, whatever you do become virtuous deeds. Without such a heart, even if your speech and actions are seemingly virtuous, they are in fact non-virtuous, because based on non-virtuous motivations. Okay, you have a question?
Stabilizing the training and for immeasurable, stabilizing in loving and compassion. How do we stabilize our mind?
Penarwa, dirwala, kasa jamba tang ningje yerwa, dinde nang sem chik temba thoya jorwa, jambe nang la jambe ki temba thoya, ningje ki temba thoya jorwa, di tabla khande chogores.
Samba ningje ta ho kunzo ke sanji ne nga ke sancho samdom li, domba de song go ko li, domba song ne domba de manyam de nam chin yu tang de sanji yu tang zo ni xie yo le ba. Ni nam chin yu tang zo yu tang nga domba lang ga ni san samba ya ba xie tang jie ba tan ke ke ta de song na ke si di domba lang ke de manyam sa song za ke song sa ni ke tam ja de sanji tam chen che ba me ji sa ni di tam ja ni de ni ko domba bi je ni de zong dong di nga ke ju de yang ko de ba.
So you need to make two kind of, promises with yourself, that you are not going to give up the vow of bodhicitta. Not giving up the vow of bodhicitta means not giving up loving kindness and compassion. And the second promise is that no matter what, you are not going to harm any living being, but you are going to try to benefit sentient beings as much as you can. When these two convictions become very firmly rooted in you, then gradually you develop stability in the practice of love and compassion and so forth. So you have to kind of feel from your heart that you are supposed to be loving and kind, and in this way you can be more and more rooted in the practice.
Nimari to la tanga megave samba cariting, gave samba cariting, takiets on megave samba regi and the day and a body rego, gave samba give the capo rego, tampon have it, David Napomando cook. You need to Lord Jan, Carpon upon a down. Tintani Carpot, Yaman, some Tamacarpot, and that over the comment.
So we need to keep training ourselves and get accustomed to love and compassion. For instance, in the past, the Kadampa masters, they used to keep a pile of black peoples on one side and a pile of right peoples on the other side, and then they sit down to meditate on loving kindness and compassion. And every time they notice a negative thought, they put one black people on one side, and every time they felt compassion and love and so forth, they put one white people on one side. So in this way, in the beginning, by the end of the session, they got more black peoples and less white peoples, and gradually the white increases and the black decrease, and finally they have only white peoples. That's how they trained their mind in bodhicitta, loving kindness. So in the same way, we need to train, keep doing, and then it happens. Dedication, please.
By the power of his fast through the worship,